Thank you everyone for joining us tonight and welcome to Include NYC Online Behavior Support at Home. My name is Rich Overton and I'll be tonight's operational support. Elizabeth Nadeau will be leading today's discussion. A little bit about Include NYC. For more than 3 decades, we have been helping young people with disabilities, their families, and professionals. We help New York City's families make informed decisions about special education, navigate disability systems, and advocate for themselves. We were founded by 3 moms who had children with disabilities and wanted to share information with other families. We offer workshops, a helpline, and resources, which we are adapting to respond to coronavirus-related school closures. You can find online workshops, parent support groups, and live streams on the Include NYC website calendar. If you have individual questions and want to speak to an educator for support, please call our Include NYC helpline at 212-677-4660. We also have a Spanish line at 212-677-4668. You can also fill out our help request form on our website at includenyc.org. We also have new timely special education resources on our website related to remote learning, fun activities at home, self-care, and more. Please subscribe to our emails on our website homepage or follow us on social media at Include NYC. A few housekeeping tips for tonight. Whether you are an Include NYC veteran or joining us for the first time, we're very glad that you're here and we'll hope that you participate. When you enter this room, your sound and video will be off. You can share your thoughts and technical issues in the chat box or send in your questions through the Q&A box. The educator and moderator will do our best to respond. Please note, there are more attendees tonight than usual. So we will do our best, our presenter will do her best to answer as many questions as possible, but unfortunately we may not be able to answer every one. So just as a reminder, if you need individual support following this webinar, again, please fill out our help request form online at includenyc.org, or you can call our helpline at 212-677-4660. We do appreciate everyone's patience and understanding, and thank you so much for joining us. Now, I just want to welcome our guest host for this evening, Elizabeth Nadeau, Behavior Specialist, Regional Partnership Center, Division of Specialized Instruction and Student Support, Office of Special Education, New York City, Department of Education. Elizabeth, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you, Rich. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here, and I have a lot of tips and suggestions to share with you guys about behavior support at home. I hope that you will find them helpful and valuable, especially during this time of remote working and remote learning. I also want to say before anything else that I hope everybody out there is safe. I hope everybody out there is healthy and your families are safe and healthy as well. I know that we are all during this time in awe of our healthcare professionals, of our emergency service providers, and even of our educators, but I feel that there's another set of heroes that we need to commend, and that's parents and caregivers. That's you guys. Parenting is not an easy job to begin with, especially during the times that we're experiencing right now with this worldwide pandemic. Anxieties are running very high and we're confined to our homes, so it makes a challenging job even more challenging. And then not to mention those of you that wear multiple hats, such as myself, working each day from home, caring for your family members, caring for your children, and helping them with their remote learning. I'm right there with you. As I said, I'm a mom myself, you know, and I really commend you all for setting aside this time to attend the webinar and to learn different ways that you can support your children during this time, and particularly to support them with their behavior at home. We're all in this together. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm lending my support as a behavior specialist for the New York City Department of Education, and with my training as a school psychologist. I want to provide you guys, as I said before, with some suggestions and strategies. These suggestions and strategies are evidence-based, so there is research to support the effectiveness of these strategies in schools as well as in homes. And these strategies are ones that I personally have recommended to parents and teachers, and I have seen great success with them. So the first portion of this webinar is going to be me delivering some content to you. And then the second portion will be answering some of your questions. So feel free to type your questions in the Q&A toggle, which is at the bottom of the Zoom window. So just a couple of disclaimers before we start. You guys need to be kind to yourselves. We're all learning here. This is a new and unprecedented time for everyone. So we need to be graceful with one another and also graceful with ourselves and patient with ourselves. As much as possible, try to engage in some self-care. I know it's something that a lot of us preach, but maybe don't do as much as possible. I myself included. Some of the things that you can do: talk to your friends, keep those social connections, take a remote dance class, engage in some exercise, start a new hobby, journal, read, scrapbook. There's still a lot of things that we can do within our homes. And then especially when we're talking about this topic of behavior. With behavior, we need to be especially patient with ourselves and especially patient with our children. There's a lot of trial and error that is involved with supporting students that have behavior challenges. All of the children, all of the students that have different needs. So some may respond to one strategy while others may not respond to that strategy. So you want to, there's some things that you may have to try and see how they work out, see how they fit in your family, in your home, and for your child. And your child will let you know if it doesn't work out for them. What is crucial is to remain as consistent as possible with whatever you do. So don't abandon the strategy, trying it one time and not having a success. Try it several times and be as consistent as possible in implementing whatever you're trying in your home, and then see if it works for them. Because children with predictability, they thrive, especially during a time like this, where so many things are not predictable and so many things are out of their control. Another disclaimer that I want to give is that what I'm going to share with you is more focused on prevention. This webinar is focused on providing you with some prevention strategies so that we don't get to those challenging behaviors. So how can we set up the environment in our homes to reduce the likelihood of a challenging behavior, of a meltdown, for example, and also the intensity of these meltdowns. Intervention would be more focused on what do we do in the moment? What do we do when challenging behaviors arise in the moment? Although I'm going to make some brief points towards the end of the content portion of the webinar about what to do in the moment, my focus is mostly going to be on prevention. What do we do beforehand? How do we set the stage so that the challenging behaviors do not occur, or so that they are not as intense? Another disclaimer I want to provide is that the focus and lens of this webinar will be on supporting behavior challenges with students that have autism, and also with students that present with some type of sensory processing issues. Most, if not all, of us know what autism is, but some of us may not know what sensory processing issues are. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit now. So difficulty with sensory processing is an issue involving the inability or a difficulty with integrating the input that we receive from our senses. So what we receive through sight, what we receive through sound, through touch. Although it is widely accepted and understood that children with autism have trouble with sensory processing, we're also finding that children that have learning disabilities and children that struggled with other behavior disorders are also experiencing sensory processing issues. As parents, we know that our children have particular likes and dislikes. They know what they like, they know what they don't like. Yet for some of our children, these preferences tend to lead to challenging behaviors. They tend to impede how they're functioning on a daily basis. And the discomfort that they feel from their sensory input can lead to, as I said, challenging behaviors. So sensory issues can involve hypersensitivity, or an over-responsiveness to the input that they're receiving from the environment, or a hyposensitivity, or an under-responsiveness to something that it's in the environment. Hypersensitivity is noticing and being distracted by background noises, an extreme fear or an extreme reaction to a sudden noise that's fairly common at home, like a toilet flushing or silverware clanking, an aversion to a hug from a parent that may come as a surprise. These are hypersensitivities. Hyposensitivities is the opposite. So it's a constant need for touch or particular textures, excessive fidgeting, a lack of understanding one's personal space. So these kids may be the ones that you find draped all over you or leaning on you when, you're speaking with them. And not knowing their own strength when perhaps unintentionally hurting others. That's another way that they express hyposensitivity, not knowing their own strength. So for those that exhibit hyposensitivity or sensory seeking behaviors, it's another way that it's put, you want to determine first what your child wants. What do they want to experience? What do they like? What is their sensory system craving? So this information is obtained by asking questions. Ask your child what they like. Ask their siblings what they've noticed that their brother or sister likes or doesn't like. Ask other caregivers like dad or grandma. Ask their teachers. Ask their providers. The list of the things that they enjoy can be things like yellow items. Some kids have preferences for colors. They may like classical music. They may like the sound of ocean waves. They may like funny faces or funny cat videos on YouTube. It's good to assess what it is that they want so that then you can figure out ways to include these sensory experiences in their daily routine. And I'll talk a little bit more about routines and schedules in a little bit. You want to be cautious, though, about how you're integrating these sensory experiences and what sensory experiences you rely on. So we know that there are several negative effects of having excessive screen time, right? And, relying on iPads, relying on television. And now this is even more because all we're using is technology in order to do our daily tasks, such as working and doing school tasks. So we want to make sure that as much as possible, we do limit the screen time and provide activities that are screen-free. Instead of opting, instead of a television or instead of an iPad, you might want to opt for something like a fidget toy or an activity that involves, activity that's hands-on, building blocks, building Legos, puzzles. If you find that your child is seeking input related to touch, another suggestion could be a weighted blanket. But with anything that you try, like I said before, it's best to be as consistent as possible. Also assess how they behave. Assess how they behave before you provide whatever material or strategy or activity, what they do during that activity and after the activity. So are you noticing that your child is more relaxed when compared to how they were when they started the activity? What are they doing during the activity? Are the challenging behaviors occurring less frequently now that you're incorporating this activity? So is it helpful to them? And of course, do more of what's working and do less of what's not. Although there should always be time limits. Now, if your child is experiencing sensory sensitivities, most children that are sensitive to sensory input feel often out of control. They're usually in that fight or flight stage, right? They need to know what issues, so they need you to let them know that the issues, the sensory difficulties they're experiencing are real, that you understand their issues, and that you will help in whatever way you can to minimize the sensory overload that they're experiencing. So stay ahead in order to minimize meltdowns or tantrums. So first you want to know what their triggers are and then manipulate their environment to manage their exposure. So a calm down corner works excellent for children with sensitivities. So, have your child pick a quiet area in your home where they can go when they feel overwhelmed and set up the space for them. Set up one that is soothing for them. Have them choose items in the space that will help them calm down. It could be noise canceling headphones to be alone in their thoughts, headphones to listen to music, a preferred book that they want to read, art materials such as coloring books and crayons, a picture of a landscape that they enjoy, like a subway map or a beach, some posted yoga poses that they can practice. And some children even find brushing their skin or brushing their hair to be very soothing. So the possibilities really are endless. But let your child be the one to develop the ideas. They usually know what works for them and they will let you know what does not work for them. And of course, if they don't, then try some things out. Remember, it's all about trial and error. Also, allow them to be the ones to request the calm down corner, request this space. At first, you will need to teach this and provide them many reminders, but don't order them to go as if it's a punishment. For those that have sensory sensitivities, it would also be helpful to schedule some silent time for sensory, to not be sensorily overloaded. This can be a brief 15 minutes of silence in the morning, right after morning academic activities, or right before bed. And it can be during all 3 times as well. They can elect to read a book for 15 minutes, 30 minutes. They can engage in a preferred game that's quiet. What's important is that they're quiet and that they're undisturbed, that they can choose to spend this time also in the calm down corner if they like. So as I said before, schedules and routines are also a way to help with preventing challenging behaviors, especially for children with autism and children with sensory processing issues. All children, particularly those with these issues, thrive off of predictability. Yes, we can't make everything predictable all the time, especially with the current state of affairs, because we don't know what's happening, right? Oftentimes. But we can make every attempt to maintain the routines that they are used to. So if you can, try to maintain the school schedule as best as possible. If you cannot, try to be as consistent as possible with whatever routines and schedules you have developed for them, or those that work in your household. The important thing is to be consistent. Wake up at the same time every day and carry out your morning routine as usual. Get dressed, brush your teeth, eat breakfast. It's also important to maintain a consistent bedtime routine. Then have a schedule of the activities that will occur that day. Review the schedule with your child each morning and give them reminders throughout the day. When we're finished getting dressed, we're going to have breakfast, and then you're going to start your reading activity. Also provide them with specific time frames of when these activities will take place and give them reminders. Use a timer or verbal warnings as time elapses. So in 10 minutes, it will be time to turn off the television and begin reading. You have 5 more minutes of computer time, just different ways that you can do that. Another great idea that I've seen parents use is a color-coded clock, so using the clock with the hands, and color-coding specific hours of the day. Blue can be for academic time, and so you've colored in 11 to 12 noon, and that's academic time. 12 to 1 can be lunchtime, recess, recreational time. That will be colored in yellow. You can do as you wish. It's just an idea that I've seen parents use that has been effective to provide a visual of what will happen during the day. And as anything else, include your child in developing the schedule. Ask them if the schedule from school works for them and keep it as consistent as possible. Move things around if they don't work for them. Some of my recommendations for what to include in your schedule at home. So academic work needs to happen. So of course, we need to include this in our schedules. So what can you do to not overwhelm your child is to spread out the academic work. Divide it up into short spurts of an hour or half hour of work, and then provide brain breaks or sensory breaks in between. These breaks can be ones that are stimulating, like structured movement activities. Go Noodle is a wonderful free resource that you can use. It's a website where I'm sure your kids know about it. They use it often in school, and it has short music videos that are also movement activities that the kids follow along. Or you can develop your own movement routines, different exercises that you do with them, like push-ups and jumping jacks to take a break. Another tip is to front load the academic work that is most arduous or most challenging for your child. Research has shown that children are able to maintain best self-control in the morning. So you want to capitalize on those morning hours. Some other things to include are creative activities like journaling, drawing, cooking. Also try to sprinkle in some reinforcing and preferred activities throughout the day. So you know how your child will respond to these activities. Be thoughtful about where exactly you will fit these in within the day. Don't allow them to start a video game that you know they have a hard time to step away from if you know that they still have math work to do. Also include some ritual opportunities for connection in your home, because your kids need connection. They need emotional connection with you. Just like this is an anxiety-provoking time for us, it's also an anxiety-provoking time for them. And we are all social beings, and we thrive off of social connection. Even those kids, like ones that have autism, who can be sometimes aversive to social interactions, they need to practice it, because we're not having them practice it in school. So we want to develop these social skills and keep them consistent as possible. So how can you do this? One way is maybe having a morning meeting in the beginning of the day where you guys discuss your highs and your lows from the previous day. This can happen during breakfast. Some students with autism may also have a hard time following a lengthy schedule, so first then boards may be more beneficial for them. These usually include pictures of an activity that you want to do with them first, which is something that they usually don't want to do, something that's more aversive, and then an activity that they can do after, something that is preferred for them. For those of you that registered, I actually sent samples and templates of daily schedules and first then boards, as well as little pictures that you can include within these. I hope that you all received it, and if you didn't, we will probably send them out again. Another preventative strategy to support positive behavior at home includes establishing behavior expectations. So behavior is a very broad term. Everything is behavior. Obviously, with our children, we want to focus on eliminating and reducing problem behaviors, challenging behaviors, and we want to increase positive behaviors. So we have to start by communicating to our children what it is exactly that we want them to do. What are our expectations of them? Of course, this list will not be exhaustive, as your child already knows some of your expectations, right? Try to centralize your expectations on the areas that are most challenging for them and make these expectations realistic for them. These expectations should be positively stated. So tell them exactly what it is you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do. Kids don't understand negatives. When they hear don't run, what they really hear is run. The expectation should be concrete. They should be clear and they should be specific. This is especially important for our students with autism, and include visuals whenever possible. They need to be appropriate for the child's age and stage of development. It is particularly important to distinguish between the two, as we know that many children with autism are characteristically delayed in some areas of development. The expectations should also be posted somewhere where the child can see them. Take into account where he or she is spending most of their time and where the challenging behaviors occur most often. If the expectations are mostly focused on work completion, academic work, then post them in the workspace where your child is doing their remote learning. Again, we have to do some assessment first to see where the problem areas are and what the triggers to the challenging behaviors are, so we can know exactly what expectations we want to communicate to our children. Some expectations need to be explicitly taught, of course. Provide them with a list of steps that you want in order for them to meet your expectations. Review these steps with them, model the expectations for them, engage them maybe in some guided practice of the expectation, and provide coaching when you can. And lastly, and most importantly, we want to reinforce the expectation. Notice when things are going right, when your child is complying with your expectation. This can be something as simple as a thumbs up, good job, I love the way that you did that. And it can also be something more structured and more formal, like a reinforcement chart, or that involves tokens and incentives. Even if you aren't using a sticker chart per se, you always do want to allow them to earn their privileges with your expectations. When they're meeting your expectations, being able to earn some privileges. This will definitely help with motivating them. And then when it comes to reinforcement, one last thing I want to share with you is something that one rule of thumb that we often use in schools is the 5-to-1 ratio. 5 positive interactions to 1 negative interaction. So you want to be providing much, much more positive connections, positive encouragement to your child, as opposed to negative and reprimanding and nitpicking. Some additional tips that I want to share: think about the space where your child is working, where they're doing the remote learning. Is there a designated area for your child to work? Is this a consistent area that they can access every day? Is it a well-lit area? Is the space free of distractions, or are there limited distractions? Is it near a window or a television or a noisy piece of furniture like the laundry room, for example? We want to take all of these factors into account, as they can often be barriers to children when they're trying to be productive in their academic work. And they may also lead to challenging behaviors if they feel frustrated by being overloaded by the sensory input. You may want to consider some things like noise canceling headphones, or just popping in some headphones with some background music while they work. Another thing is having like a slant board to eliminate any visual distractions. And of course, making sure that whatever space you use, they can access every day and is a consistent space that they make their own. Another thing you want to do is provide choices. Kids want some control. Especially in a time like this, when there's so much that is out of their control, provide them with some control. Give them choices of activities they want to do, of chores that you want them to do. This is especially important when you have a child that's not being very compliant. You want them to do a chore. You say, I have these things that I want you to help me with around the house. These are the 3 that you can do. You can clean the bathroom, you can clean the windows, or you can clean your room. So forcing them to pick something of what you want them to do. Another thing that you want to do is routinely check in with their feelings. So this can happen while you're eating breakfast. Just ask them, how are you feeling today? This will help them in checking in and having self-awareness. How am I feeling today? Notice their feelings, name their feelings, share with them what body language you're seeing from them. I see that you have some furrowed eyebrows. I see that your fists are clenched, and that represents to me that you're angry. It's also helping them with self-awareness, and normalize their feelings. Express to them, it's normal for us to be overwhelmed right now. It's normal for us to be stressed. It's normal for us to feel frustrated. Then discuss and practice some coping strategies. You can do it in the moment if they are feeling stressed or overwhelmed. You can talk about relaxation techniques that you use yourself, or ones that you've heard to be effective. Or right before bed is a great time to practice relaxation techniques as well. Also, checking in with your child helps you with knowing how to approach them that day, how you will interact with your child that day. Perhaps if it's a day where they are overly stressed or feeling overwhelmed, you're not going to push them on a difficult topic, and you'll save that for another day when you know that they have more energy. You want to promote social connections. As I said, we're social beings, and especially our youngsters with autism, they need to practice their social skills. A great way to do this is have virtual play dates. Have them pick a preferred friend, connect with their parents, and do a Zoom play date. Also, you want to provide as much verbal encouragement as possible. Research has shown that parents that highlight mistakes and nitpick when children are doing their homework often have lower levels of confidence. But when parents were found to be encouraging and use encouraging words, you can do this, you got this, they saw more academic success. So we want to be as positive as possible. Also, we want to have a list of off-screen activities, as I said before, trying to limit as much as possible screen time. So have a list of activities that they can do without the screen. Make it accessible, make these things accessible for them. If they chose something that they like, coloring in a coloring book, make sure you have some coloring books for them, or some paper for them to draw. Also, if there's one thing that you guys can take away from them, from this, that is one of the most important things, is collaborating and consulting with school staff that work with your children. The teachers and paraprofessionals and providers that work with your children have a plethora of knowledge about what works and what does not work for your child. They spend a lot of time with your child, and they've been assessing them throughout the school year. So they can be helpful in providing you some suggestions, some tips on what has been successful for them in school. Some strategies from school can be translated to home, some cannot. But I know that teachers and providers are more than willing, and they're happy to help you with this. Remember, as I said before, we are all in this together. And then the last thing that I want to cover is the teachable moment. So I know we can set up the best expectations, the best laid out plan, and still a meltdown occurs. It still results in a challenging behavior. As I said before, be patient. Take a deep breath, be kind, be gracious to yourself and your child. We're all in a crisis situation. But remember that we're not teaching in a crisis situation. We are de-escalating in a crisis situation. When they are experiencing a meltdown, they're very dysregulated in their emotions. We're not focusing on teaching them. Teaching happens before and it happens after, but not during the crisis moment. Because when we are our angriest, we are our stupidest. That's a saying that was said to me once that really stuck with me. So that goes for children and adults. The difference is that as adults, we've gained knowledge through our experience. We've learned from past mistakes. So we learn to regulate our feelings and cope with them in a healthy way and problem solve in order to get the best outcome, right? But children, they don't have that experience just yet, or they're not learning from the experiences that they've had. So as adults, we have to help foster that learning and using the challenging experiences that they've had, the challenging behaviors, to create teachable moments. Again, not teaching in the moment, but teaching after the fact. So first, it is important to help children understand that we all make mistakes, that all mistakes are part of learning. And that type of thinking is the growth mindset. You want to help your child to adopt a growth mindset as much as possible. Then you want to work with your child to dissect what happened in that moment, what emotions came up for them, what were the physical reactions that they felt, and not in their stomach, their eyes welled up with tears. They had some sweaty palms. This is helping with self-regulation and self-awareness. And then what was it that triggered their emotion in that moment? What was the story that they played in their heads, helping them link the thoughts to their feelings? The story that's playing in their head, how did that relate to what feeling that was coming up for them? And then we want to convey to them that all emotions are normal. As I said before, normalize emotions, empathize with them, show them that you understand why they felt angry or frustrated. Give them examples of when you felt this way in the past and what you did. And then that takes me to my last and most important point. We want to convey to them that although our emotions sometimes can feel out of control, that what we can control is our response and our reactions. So we want to explicitly teach them healthy ways to cope with their emotions, such as deep belly breathing, smelling the hot chocolate, blow out, cool it down, imagery, thinking about, using mindfulness, thinking about having them close their eyes and think about a place that is relaxing to them, such as the beach. Have them smell the air. What does it smell like? Have them listen to whatever sounds are in this environment. Squeezing and releasing a toy, that's, progressive muscle relaxation. That's also very helpful in relaxing as well. And a great way to engage in this type of teaching is through social stories. This is widely used with children on the autism spectrum and has been proven to be very effective through research. Social stories are individualized short stories that you develop with your child that depict some type of situation that is challenging for them. With the story, you should include possible responses or feelings that they may experience, as well as affirmations, how they should respond to these situations, and then how others can help them. So that concludes the content portion of this webinar. I think I went a little bit over. I apologize for that. So now I'm going to allow for some time to answer your questions. Let me check the questions Q&A box to see. Okay, I have a few questions already. That's great. Okay, so will this webinar be able to be replayed? Yes, I believe it is being recorded.
Yep, we'll archive it within a week on our YouTube page.
Perfect. Thank you, Rich. Can we get a summary of the webinar, please? Another thing that I am actually working off of is a PowerPoint, and I'm also going to send that to Rich so that he can share with all participants as well. How can you help? How to show? Sorry, just give me a pause just to read some of your questions. There's a lot coming in. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so somebody asks, how can we help to show what gets him mad? Because my son starts throwing things. Sometimes he doesn't want to do anything. I think, like I said before, a lot of what I focused on is prevention. So, we don't want to, in the moment, there's other things that we can do when they're angry, when they're throwing things. We want to be as calm as possible. We're not teaching. We're just trying to de-escalate. We're trying to bring their emotions down to a more steady playing field, and then, move on from there. And like I said about the teachable moment, after the fact, kind of talking about, ask them, what was it that made you upset in that moment? It doesn't even have to be that day. It can be the following day. Hey, I remember yesterday when I asked you to do this and you didn't want to and you started throwing things. What was it that triggered you? What was it that made you upset? Because you were throwing things, it seemed to me that you were upset, you were frustrated, you were angry. And I knew this because these are the behaviors that you were engaging in. So kind of helping them to develop their self-awareness, but also helping them, even if they don't know, to start thinking so that next time when this occurs, What was it that triggered Nate? And then hopefully they can communicate that with you. Specific advice. How can I make a social story for my 5-year-old? So I would say include them in the social story. So think about what is a challenging situation for them. So maybe the challenging situation is approaching a peer. I mean, that may not, be relevant right now, but how would you approach a peer? And then set up the stage and have them draw pictures, have them write the story with you. Of course, for a 5-year-old, you may need to kind of do a little bit more hand holding towards, the objective, which is to develop a story. Try to make it as concrete as possible. Try to use as many visuals and pictures as possible. And of course, include them, because once they see the story, they're going to remember that they developed that with you, and they're going to remember what the story is, what the outcome is, what the problem was. So siblings, how can we promote healthy relationships with one child is autistic and another is not? Great question. And this comes up often. So, I think when a child is a sibling of a child that has a disability such as autism, it can be very challenging for them, because oftentimes the other child it may seem like the other child is getting more attention or more support. But I feel like, that's also a teachable moment. You could teach into that experience with them, talking about how different people need different things. So although, she may need this because she doesn't yet know how to do this, you may not need that. And you can even have them help with the teachable moment, help you with fostering some development in the child with autism. Have the sibling help their brother or sister with whatever it is that's challenging for them. But I think for the sibling, it's a great learning experience for them to understand that everyone has different needs. So with the nonverbal, that's a very good question. Someone asked, how can I do this if my child is nonverbal? So this is where you're going to want to use as many visuals as possible. You're going to want to use very explicit one-word commands and teach them the visuals. This is me, this is more, this is one of the things that I know speech therapists use very often is the PEC system, the picture exchange communication system. And as I said before, if one thing that I can convey to you guys is to connect with the providers and teachers that work with your children, because they have so much knowledge. I know that they're overwhelmed right now, but they will get back to you. And I know that they're very happy to help as much as possible. But I think that, using as many visuals as possible to highlight the schedule and highlight the routine. Just 1 second, reading some of these. Okay, so this one says, sorry. So how to help their 3-year-old who gets frustrated and screams during nap time, disturbing other children from their rest, and how can their parent help them as well? So I'm assuming this is not a parent, maybe this is a teacher. So really the focus of this webinar was more for remote, what's happening remotely. So, but we can discuss during, when we initiate and return back to our normal, regularly scheduled program, with nap times, it's what I notice is, especially children, if this child, I'm not sure if this child has autism, it doesn't say in the question, but especially children with autism, they can be very sensory overloaded. So you wanna try as much as possible to practice some relaxation techniques with them. You wanna try and help them with learning how to breathe deeply. You want to try and help them with learning how to do anything that soothes them and relaxes them, maybe giving them a little bit more attention in this area so that they can relax prior to the nap time. Another thing that you can do, like I said, is the social stories. You can talk about nap times, how to prepare for nap time, what is it that they should be doing, even if they're not napping, remaining quiet, why it's important to remain quiet, helping them to be socially aware of how their behavior is impacting other students. Before I leave, I want to apologize if I didn't get to your question. If I wasn't able to answer something, please make sure to reach out to Include NYC. They have, as Rich had mentioned, they have help request forms that you can fill out at includenyc.org. You can also reach out to them through their direct support line, which is 212-677-4660 in English, or 212-677-4668 in Spanish for support in Spanish. You may also find your question just by searching and looking through the resources on the Include NYC website. I really encourage you to visit it. They have a lot of helpful resources there. And lastly, I want to thank all of you for participating in this webinar. As I said before, I really hats off to all of the parents out there. I know that this is a challenging time. We are all in this together. Please, everyone, stay safe. Thank you.